Yo, my beats, they are hard.
All right, welcome. Hello, welcome to another live episode of the BCSN SportsWrap. Bryan Fulford tonight. Not solo though. Got a loaded up show for you tonight. As I've got Coach Ferrasi Norman coming up here in just a moment. He's going to be joining me in this episode. Then at the bottom of hour one, Chris Ferguson, D2K Ferg, is going to come on, get a chance to talk about what's happening in the CIAA, the best HBCU D2 football conference this year, without a doubt. Our numbers in the BCSN top 5 says so. So we're gonna talk about that. And then in hour two, my guy Brad Gillens is going to come in. Brad, of course. Not only does he cover Bethune-Cookman and South Carolina State, so we're going to get a chance to not only let him kind of stick his chest out a little bit about what's going on with Bethune-Cookman, but also the start of the MEAC. Yeah, I guess we could say the start of the MEAC football season really kicks off this upcoming Saturday. 3 of the 4 matchups, potentially in any given week, you've got 4 teams that'll play each other. I think I'm saying that right. No, there's only 3 in any given week. So yeah, the MEAC, I gotta remember there's only 6 teams in the MEAC. So this is the first full weekend for MEAC play. Begins this upcoming weekend. So we'll talk to him about what we can expect from the MEAC. What can we take away from the non-conference season? And then coming up at the bottom of hour 2, Mo Carter coming in to join us. Mo, of course, right there in Huntsville, Alabama, WZDX TV covers Alabama A&M, among other things there in the Huntsville, Alabama area. So the Magic City Classic is coming up this upcoming weekend. And boy, I tell you, there are so many different angles and things that that particular game has, not only for those programs, those coaches, but I'll even go so far as to say the SWAC as well. So all eyes will be paying attention to that game. But before I get to Coach Ferrasi, I say hello to everybody joining us, my usual peeps joining me on the JBN online on YouTube, or maybe on Facebook, or the BCSN SportsWrap Facebook and YouTube pages. I say hello to you. Say hello to everybody joining us, watching on X and watching on Instagram Live. I say hello to you. Let me get to some headlines here coming into this Sunday evening, episode 13 here, season 8. And big headline, without a doubt, only one team from the state of Florida goes to Mississippi and gets a win. And it's not who I think many folks thought it would be or could be, as the Jackson State Tigers continue their second half dominance over Florida A&M University in the game of the year. It was the game of the year so far. I mean, we'll break that down. I broke it down a little bit this morning with Dr. Cavill and the professors. And look, I eat a little crow, but we'll get into this game. As I say, congratulations to all of the JSU people who are still enjoying their victory. But for FAMU folks, we're on to Southern because we got another big game and we got to keep moving forward. But yes, only one team from the state of Florida went to Mississippi, and it was not who I thought it would be. Congratulations to Bethune-Cookman as well, getting their first win of the season. Second headline, blood is spilled on the homecoming fields of Atlanta, Greensboro, and D.C. As in Greensboro, North Carolina, the greatest rout on earth took place there as Hampton rolls, minus their band, rolls into North Carolina A&T Stadium, and after giving up a 14-3 first quarter lead, puts up a 50 burger, 56-3 over the next three quarters, including a 28-0 fourth quarter, which was seen by practically nobody, as most of the people there wearing blue and gold had already departed for the parking lot and the bonfires and all the other festivities that go into homecoming. While in D.C., the Tigers attacked the Bison on their homecoming day as Eddie George and his team roll into the nation's capital, get a big 27-14 win. And then how about there on the red field of Clark, Atlanta? You couldn't see the blood because the Golden Bears mauled the Panthers so bad that you couldn't even see the blood on the field, on that red field. Congratulations. The Golden Bears remain unbeaten in the SIAC, getting a 49-28 victory over Miles. Hey, Southern, there must be some magic in that gumbo because Southern on homecoming gets a 24-14 win over Alcorn State and takes control of the West and are unbeaten. Who had that? Who had that on the bingo card? That Southern would be unbeaten after 3 games in the SWAC West. They do it thanks and courtesy to about 300 yards of rushing. Congratulations, my guy, Carlos Brown. Carlos in the building. I see Carlos there. Nice job there. Congratulations to the Jaguars. And now they get on the bus and get ready to head to Tallahassee. Come on, Southern. We ready for you. We ready. Going to be a good matchup there in Tallahassee. Johnson C. Smith wins their homecoming fight with Shaw to remain unbeaten, and the Winston-Salem State Rams in the dream season of a Livingstone Blue Bears. I got to say, there's still a chance for Livingstone to get win number 6 or 7, but I think those chances of going to the CIAA championship game are kind of done, I think. All right, well, I said we'd get into it here in the first segment, so let me go ahead and bring in my guy, Coach Farasi Norman. Coach?
Aloha. Hello to the chat room. BF, what's up, brother? How you doing? You okay from yesterday? I thought I was going to have to, get a resuscitation for you and my man AD. And hey, it's going to be okay, fellas. It's going to be okay.
You know what? I tell you, it's interesting when you see these games play out. And sometimes some games, I've had to kind of put on a different kind of hat these days, sort of as a media, person, but I'm still a fan. And we all understand what fan is short for, right, Coach? Fan is short for fanatic. And so the fanatics were out hard last night. You can't be into this space, FAMU and Jackson State, and you can't be in this space without there being some nasty barbs. And I've seen, I tried. Look, I'm as petty as anybody, so I'll admit it before the people in the chat room go crazy. I can be petty, but I try not to be nasty. And there's some things that I've seen on social media which are pretty nasty, pretty embarrassing. And as a Rattler, I'm embarrassed for my fellow Rattlers that are participating in it. And I would hope the sane, sensible J-State folks would be embarrassed as well. But, hopefully, thank God for blocking features, and you can mute and block people on Twitter, which I think is kind of pointless. But anyway, I'm reminded that fans are fans, Coach. Fans are fans.
You know what, BF? Sometimes we take it to a point where it's like, wow, really? But we forget that as much as we love this, it's just a game. It's just a game.
Yeah.
And as much as we love it, it's just a game. It's like, wow. So, I can understand because that was the game of the year. We've been talking about that game since last spring, and everything like that. And so I thought it was a good game, no fault to nobody. I thought it was a good game. There's a couple things I'd like to say when we get going, but I was blessed. I mean, I was impressed as an HBCU graduate. That was one of the games that I'd like to stand up and say, hey, that's what we do. That's our football right there. Because I saw no slouches on either side of the ball. Jackson State took control the last couple minutes. But other than that, I thought I saw two heavyweights slugging it.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's get into that. And, for everyone in the chat room, I say hello to you. I'll try to get into posting some of the comments here from all the folks who are coming in. But we really did. And what I said this earlier, Coach, what makes great games is when you can kind of look back on it after the emotion. First off, if there was no anxiety, and I think for both sides, there had to be anxiety for fans. If there's no anxiety, you don't have a big game. If you don't have big plays, you don't have a big game. And if you don't have a dramatic finish, you don't have a big game. This game in Jackson, Mississippi had all three. And so with that said, it's in the house right now for game of the year. We'll see what the next 5 to 6 weeks have in store for us. But right now, it's in the running for game of the year. So yeah, let's start with the first quarter, Coach, because the first quarter is where you had the fireworks. The first quarter is where you had the fireworks. Big play after big play in the opening stanza of this contest. Jackson State would hold FAMU to 3 and out on the opening drive, which I don't know if this affected you, Coach, or a lot of people, but the feed for ESPN U didn't kick in until after FAMU's opening drive. So I didn't miss anything.
I didn't catch it. I think I missed the first series of both because it was still 0-0 when it turned over and everything like that. But so I don't think I missed much. But yeah, it didn't show the kickoff. I didn't see the kickoff for the first two series or the first series of either team. I caught the second series going towards that field goal.
Yeah. So right after FAMU, hold on, I'm trying to get my notes and everything here together here. So bear with me here for a quick hot second as I kind of pull all this up. Right after that FAMU 3 and out, Jackson State would go on their opening drive, 8 plays, 67 yards, scoring a touchdown. Amari Matthews with a 4-yard run. Pretty nice drive by Jackson State as they came out 8 plays, 67 yards, 303 on that opening drive. After FAMU would punt, FAMU again, their offense kind of stalled again, going 3 and out. They would punt. Jackson State would get the ball, move the ball down the field, 6 plays, 27 yards, get all the way down to the FAMU 26 with their first field goal attempt of the day. And actually missed that field goal attempt, which is kind of interesting from the standpoint of, Coach, that was about let me make sure I get the numbers right. I believe that was about a 40, let me see. I'm going to pull it up here on the stat sheet here. 48-yard field goal attempt.
That was supposed to be within his distance because from what I'm understanding, the coaches on Jackson State saying that the kid is good for 50, 52. So when he missed the 48, I was kind of like, whoa, what's going on here? Is he not warmed up properly? But it was in his distance. Yeah.
So he misses that field goal. And then FAMU comes back and answers 6 plays, 74 yards with a touchdown. And that was courtesy of a Jamari or Asion Cobb, a 70-yard pass play from Daniel Richardson. A nice throw. If I'm not mistaken, that was the play in which they caught the DBs kind of in the middle of possibly changing their formation or their lineup, and Richardson paid attention to it and hit Cobb real quick on the sideline, and Cobb just kind of did all the work himself. Jackson State came back and answered on the next drive. Irv Mulligan with a 54-yard run. And that's a play right there.
That was a nice run.
That was a nice run. And I think what bothers a lot of people on the FAMU side of things, obviously, is the initial hit where Mulligan comes through the hole. A defender from FAMU tried to hit him.
He ran him over.
Yeah, didn't try to wrap him up. And next minute, you know, Mulligan bounces off of him and gone to the house. That was one of those moments, Coach. That kind of.
Let me just say something real quickly about the first touchdown for Jackson State. I just want to go back real quickly. Shout out to that running back. Shout out to that O-line. They opened that hole, but he hit that hole. You go back and watch that. I mean, that's running with aggression. That's running with power. That's running with not to be denied. And we as coaches love that. I watched that play, and I was like, that was a good hard run right there into the house. And the one we're talking about right now, same thing. This kid came in there, ran over an outside backer safety. I mean, you look like something from Earl Campbell from the 70s. Ran him over and got a sprint on for about, 50, 55 yards. So there was 2 good runs from their running backs. Jackson State got good backs. We all know that. They got a big line. They're strong. That running game they got is strong. I believe if they keep running the ball, it's going to be what they need to ride on to the end of the season. But those plays right there stick out to me. So Daniel Richardson, for that touchdown, I know he threw 3 touchdowns. The boy's got a great arm. He's a good quarterback. I mean, you guys got a good quarterback there. But that play there particularly, you know, I mean, he throws the ball right on the money. For a receiver, you don't have to reach up high or low. I mean, he's throwing it where you need it to be, where you can actually make plays and shake a DB if he's on you or something like that. Shout out to Daniel Richardson for what he does. And that offensive line, I mean, they do a good job pass blocking. I need to say this, though. FAMU, you guys got to find a run game. You guys got to find a run game because right now you're living off a pass game, which is not bad. But this time of the year, you got to put the ball on the ground. And you got good backs. You don't got slouch backs. You got good backs that can run that ball. I think yesterday I saw maybe 2, possible 3 good runs. Other than that, it was in the air. Now, you guys are a passing team. We know that. But you got to develop you got to develop a running game if you plan to contend to keep that throne on your head. Yeah.
Difficult times. And I think as it relates to FAMU, and when you go and look at the total yardage there, the total yardage, let me pull that up. It was pretty disgusting when you go and look at the total rush yards, net 63 rushing yards for FAMU, 245 for Jackson State. But I'm sounding prisoner at the moment, but even still with J-State having almost a 2-to-1 run to pass ratio, I still think they left plays on the field for us because the run was effective, but they should have ran that ball probably about 10 more times than they did.
What was the ratio? I know we talked about it earlier. I forgot. What was the ratio? It was heavy
they
pass.
ran 43 attempts, and they passed I believe 25 times. So almost 2-to-1.
They ran the ball 43 times?
Ran the ball 43 times, had 25 pass attempts.
And they had negative 63 yards rushing. Well, they had a couple sacks too. Wait
a minute. Who are we talking? We're talking about. I thought we were talking about Jackson State.
No, I thought we were talking about FAMU.
Oh, I'm sorry. We were talking about FAMU. I was mentioning Jackson State, but for FAMU, that's all right. For FAMU, 28 pass attempts and rushing 26 rush attempts. I mean, FAMU was kind of a 50-50.
Yeah, I was going to say that's 50-50.
Yeah. I was referring to Jackson State, so I think we were talking about 2 different things there.
That's okay.
So with the score 14-17, with about a minute something to play, FAMU gets one more touchdown here coming up towards the end of the quarter to cap off a 2-play 73-yard drive. As this time Richardson hits a Jamari Gassett on a 34-yard pass play, and our score is tied up at 14 at the end of the first quarter. I mean, blow for blow, Coach. I mean, that's what we got there in the first quarter.
It was 2 passes by FAMU through 2 touchdowns in the air, and Jackson State had 2 on the ground. 2 great passes by Daniel and 2 good runs by the running backs. Shout out to both O-line guys. I'm always give those guys credit. They did their job. They kept him upright, and they opened holes for those running backs. So that first quarter, first half, I'm still thinking. I mean, once again, 2 heavyweights slugging it.
Yeah. Now, Jackson State did end up getting a field goal here to open the second quarter, as this time Gerardo Beza hit a 36-yard field goal early in the second quarter. Jackson State has a 17-14 lead, sort of regaining the lead once again. But then FAMU on a 6-play, 54-yard drive with 4:51 to play, FAMU gets a 8-yard touchdown. But I think what you have in that mix here, right? You had a pair of interceptions and then a fumble. So after the field goal by Jackson State, FAMU comes back, throws their first interception, first turnover of the game. Then on the next possession, Jackson State fumbles, puts the ball. FAMU has the ball there at midfield near the 46-yard line. FAMU scores off of that touchdown. They have a 21-17 lead at that point. Oh, but the turnovers aren't done. On the next JSU possession, a beautiful interception by Kendall Bowler by FAMU late in that second quarter. The game, FAMU starts on their own 16-yard line, unable to capitalize on that, and take note of that because that would be a theme in the second half. FAMU unable to convert off of Jackson State turnovers. They would punt the ball, at that point, and in the final possession, what I thought was interesting, Coach, to end this first half, after that punt in which FAMU is unable to convert on that interception, they punt the ball. We're under a minute to play. Jackson State gets into field goal range, knocks down a field goal. Let's see, that was 37 yards for Baeza and cuts the deficit from 21-17 to 21-20. And you stated to me, you thought that was a big field goal that Jackson State had going into the halftime.
I felt that was a good field goal, gives him momentum, gives him some electricity, some light to say, hey, we're still in this game. But before I go forward, Bryan, I want to say something real quickly. That last touchdown that Daniel Richardson threw, that led him to give you guys that 21, that was NFL pass. I mean, he threaded that needle so well. It's like, I mean, that was just beautiful. You had to just drop him out and say, wow. He had a free safety on top of him.
Looked off the linebacker too, right?
He had a free safety on top of him. He had the corner right here, and only someone that knows how to throw that ball can. That's why I say it was an NFL pass. That ball, like I said, if I was an NFL scout, I'm putting him down right now because that ball right there. I mean, that was a hard throw, but he made it look so easy and beautiful. And I was just like, shout out to Daniel Richardson, brother. That's how you throw a football right there. That's like, remember being young and you tie the tire in the back and you throw it against the tree and you swing it left or right and you throw up the tree in there. That's that kind of pass right there. I mean, that was a beautiful pass. Now back to the field goal. That field goal gave Jackson State some electricity, to keep moving forward. Hey, we're still in this fight here. And TC, hey, I was proud of TC. I thought he commanded the ship real well. I thought they played well, offense, defense, special team. So 2021, hey, once again, two heavyweights slugging it out.
All right, I'm gonna move quick here, Coach, because I don't want to chew up too much of our time. The second half, complete flip the script here. As much offense and excitement as we had in the first half, the second half, I mean, it was chaotic. It was chaotic because not only did you have Jackson State, let me see, and I charted this down here. In the first half, Jackson State had a fumble, which resulted in a FAMU touchdown. They had the INT. FAMU had the punt. Jackson State got a field goal, right? The second half, this is what, for Rattlers, this is what was frustrating. And for Jackson State fans, this is where, hey, I mean, however you say it's the poise, whatever you want to say it is, this is why teams win. If you can avoid and your defense can get stops when your offense makes a mistake. Jackson State opening possession of the third quarter, fumbled at the FAMU 28-yard line. So that means they're driving into FAMU territory, fumble the ball. FAMU gets it. Now, the bad part for FAMU, they go 9 plays, only really 32 yards on those 9 plays, and end up having to punt the ball. Nothing comes out of it, right? 2 possessions later by Jackson State, another fumble, this time on the FAMU 44-yard line. FAMU, 5 plays, 12 yards, another punt. And this is that point where I think the angst of the game is starting to kick in because you had a FAMU field goal attempt that was missed, a chance to kind of go up 24-20. That's missed, a missed opportunity to score off a turnover, right? FAMU punts later. Jackson State has a field goal attempt. Hold on, let me come back here before I get to that. Going into the fourth quarter, the interesting drive going into the fourth quarter, right? FAMU, let me see. Let me come back here. Let me see. In the fourth quarter, FAMU ends up punting. Jackson State takes over on the 20-yard line. Fourth quarter, 10:39 to play. They use up 5 minutes and 26 seconds. This is the key drive. They get 10 plays, 47 yards, get to a field goal position here, and they attempt a 50-yard field goal. Now, Coach, we talked about this. They had just missed a 48-yarder early. They're attempting a 50-yard, and I understand. You're at that point of the game where you're thinking, this field goal, if this is in his range, this field goal gives them a lead. But he missed it. He missed it back, too. Missed it to the left, right? Missed it to the left. FAMU takes over on their own 33-yard line with 5:13 to play, Coach. And at this point, this is that point where the ESPN metric said FAMU has a 75% chance of winning, Coach. But hey, 75 ain't 100. So what's that mean, Coach? There's a chance. Jackson State had a chance. Jackson State had a chance. And sure enough, first down, FAMU runs 2 yards. 2nd and 8, the play that kills me, FAMU does a toss to the outside, ends up losing a yard. Now it's 3rd and 9. 3rd and 9, Coach. What are you thinking here? 3rd and 9 with about 3-something to play. What's your mindset at this point in the game if you're FAMU up 1 on your own 30-something yard line? What's your thought process at this point?
Me, head coach or coordinator, I'm looking for the sticks. Okay, I got 9 yards to go. So I need to do comebacks, out routes, maximum blocking up front with my line and my running backs, because obviously my running game ain't working. I was surprised when they threw that toss sweep too. Let me say something real quickly. The sweeps don't work like they used to. Defenses are too fast for that. So you have to run at them, zone them, power block them or something like that. But just to run a toss sweep, defenses are just too fast. That play is really is dying like the running back, because that play is, defense is just too fast to do the toss sweep. So I scratched my head and said, where'd that come from? But maybe they was trying to set up something. But anyway, back to this 3rd and 9 situation. I'm looking for the sticks. I'm doing comebacks. I'm doing out routes. And I know I got a good quarterback. I know I got for sure receivers. That play there, I was like.
Are you passing, though? The question is, are you passing or are you running?
Most definitely. That's why I say I'm finding where the sticks are. I'm doing comebacks and out routes.
Interesting. I question the decision to pass on a 3rd and 9 where you have the lead, and Jackson State, I believe, still has a timeout left in their pocket. I'm thinking run the ball, run some clock, force them to use a timeout possibly, and then punt. Your defense has held them scoreless in the second half.
BF, real quickly, why would you run and your running game ain't working? Why would you run and your running game ain't working?
Clock. I'm thinking clock. No, I'm thinking run the clock. Maybe that's a conservative nature. I think that was that's the thing. I think the conservative play calling to that point screamed run the ball. That's just me.
Can't be conservative, brother. This is the biggest game right here. Biggest game. Can't be conservative.
Okay.
Gotta let them hang.
Well, in the attempt to pass the ball, Daniel Richardson, the blitz comes up the middle. He gets hit. He really gets stuck in a position where he didn't even get a chance to pump fake. The ball is kind of up around his head. He gets hit in his chest, and as he's coming down, the ball gets knocked loose. Jackson State, what I tell you, Coach, 3 things can happen when you put the ball in the air, right? And 2 of them are bad.
Well, I think that was me last week, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
That was you last week. You put that in my head. But anyway, Jackson State ends up getting a scoop and score. He got hit, fumbled it, scoop and score, take it to the house, and I'm just sitting there like, unbelievable. Now FAMU's down 26-21. They get a 2-point conversion, go up 28-21. And, at this point, you're looking at 3:15 to play.
Bryan, real quick, let me say something about that 2-point conversion. That showed athletic ability on Jacoby Morgan. Is that name Jacoby Morgan? That kid is real. He's one of the top 5 out there. I can't really put a number on him. But if you go back and watch that play, that was an option play. I'm an option quarterback. So I start drooling when I see that. And the way he strung it out is why we're taught. String it out, and shoot. And that's exactly what he did. And I was like, good job, young man. Good job, young man.
Yeah, definitely. It was right now. It was the hit of the year, no doubt. A legitimate hit, scoop and score, and then on the next possession for FAMU, a first play, a pass to the tight end. He's trying to make a play, but I tell my basketball players this when they're driving to the lane. Nothing good comes out of a spin move, Coach. And so as he's trying to spin, the ball gets knocked out of his hands, fumble. Jackson State recovers, And then they punch it in for a game-sealing touchdown at that point, 35-21. And it continues this streak. And I'm gonna let you get the final thoughts in here, Coach, and then I'm gonna throw some numbers at people and just you. But I want to give you the final word on this game as Jackson State ends up winning 35-21 and kind of controls their destiny, basically, to get to the SWAC championship game.
I think that tight end, yours, he's one of the better tight ends in HBCU football. We've seen him make plays. I think at that time he was just probably trying to do just a little too much, and we as athletes, we tend to do that because he's a for sure handed guy. So when he dropped that ball, I had to scratch my head again, like that doesn't happen. But then Jackson State's hungry. You know, they're hungry. They're playing the #1 team in HBCU football. They've had to hear about you guys for several years now. You're at their house. You're in their vet, and they're playing well. So they're attacking him, and they you know, they stripped the ball. He dropped it. They scored 35-20. Was it 35-21? Something like that. And it happened real fast, like boom, boom. And I was thinking, whoa, okay. And you just seen the energy switch from one side to another. And you seen them Blue Tigers, they just are jumping up. And I think after that, they pretty much had it after that. As far as Jackson State goes, we have to be careful. Remember a couple weeks ago, we were all excited about Jackson State because after they beat somebody pretty good. We're like, okay, they got it. Then they came back the next week and didn't play very well. And then they came back and they was dragging A&M, and then they let them come back the second half. So me personally, honestly, shout out to TC and his crew. They're doing a great job, but I'm going to have to see a couple more games before I just say, okay, that's the team. Right now, since FAMU's been beat, I don't think there is somebody we can just hang our hat on. Southern's playing good football. Let me see. Alcorn's playing okay. They're right there. Jackson State has the hot hand. They have the hot hand, but I'm going to have to see 2 or 3 more games before I say, okay, they're on their way to the SWAC championship, head to the Celebration Bowl. They got a good team. They got everything they need. They just need to keep it going.
Yeah, and look, let's keep it. You know, that's the thing. There's still a lot of games left to play. I mean, Jackson State still has 5 games left on the schedule. I think they'll easily be a favorite in the next 3 games, and then the last 2 games of the season against Alabama State and Alcorn will be interesting games. I'm not saying they're going to be an underdog or a favorite, but those will be more competitive, at least as we look at them 3 to 4 weeks away. Yes, those will be the big-time matchups that will either leave the door open for somebody else, or they will shut the door and give them an opportunity to either host or play in the SWAC championship game. So, congrats to Jackson State again on getting the win. All FAMU can do at this point is control their own destiny and win out. A couple of numbers here, Coach, and then we got to wrap up our segment. I'm going to give you some numbers here. 17, 776, 60, and 1. 17. That's how many consecutive SWAC champion or SWAC games FAMU had won prior to losing yesterday. And that includes the SWAC championship game. That's 17 SWAC games, including the SWAC championship. It had been 776 days since FAMU lost to Jackson State back on September 5th, 2022 in the Orange Blossom Classic. 776 days. 60 in the 4 meetings between FAMU and Jackson State. Jackson State has outscored FAMU 60-0 in the second half. FAMU has not scored a point, 0, in the second half of 4 meetings now. And the only team to beat FAMU in the SWAC is Jackson State.
That has become like a, not to cut you off, apologize. That has become like a mini rival between both of those teams. Both teams, shout out to both of them, both coaches, shout out to both of those coaches. Those are great numbers you put up there. FAMU, do not hold your head down. Keep your head up. You're still the man. You still got the best team out there. You just need to regroup. You got Southern coming to town. They're coming. They got a heck of a running game. They got a big offensive line. If you can stop that run game, you possibly got a chance. Season still got like 5 or 6 weeks to determine who's really going to take. Right now it's a tight race. You know, it's like everybody got their head down, everybody's running, but no one is crossing that finish line just yet. So these next 4 or 5 weeks are going to be interesting. Once again, I mean, that's why we call it HBCU football. It's very interesting week to week. So I'm excited to see it. Jackson State, keep doing what you're doing. TC, coaches, keep coaching them. I said a couple weeks ago, I think you guys had a good team. You're looking good. But like I said, I can't just say, oh, you're the team, because who knows what you're going to do next week or week after that. So keep fighting, keep going, and I think you guys will get past the Deion Scenera, and TC will be able to hold his own hat and up, and you guys can take this lead. So good football at the SWAC level. I'm impressed. Still got my hand up. But hey, BF, I know it's the end of our segment. I appreciate this. I'll let you know which games I'm gonna get next week, and I'll be in the chat letting you know what's happening.
I appreciate you, Coach. We'll make sure to talk about the Magic City Classic, and later in hour two, I will get a chance to talk about the as we call it, the bottom of the barrel bowl that happened in Mississippi Valley State. The bottom of the barrel bowl. We're not going to use that other name, but the Mississippi.
Yeah. We'll go bottom.
We're not going to use that other name. Bottom of the barrel bowl. Hey, Coach, I always appreciate you. Appreciate your insight. Always enjoy talking with you.
Take care now.
Yeah. All right. Take care, Coach. All right. Let me take a short 1-minute break. Come back with my guy, Chris Ferguson, on the other side, and talk about the CIAA, which is right now the best HBCU football conference in Division II, hands down. And, who knew? Who knew? Maybe Chris knew. I certainly didn't know this going into the start of the season. But we'll talk about the CIAA, and maybe their game of the year is coming up this upcoming weekend. So I look forward to talking to Chris, and we'll be back here in just a short second. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap right here on the Black College Sports Network.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Lavert Experience and Sunshine Anderson. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app that brings Eatonville's legacy to life from your phone. Enjoy family-friendly STEM activities and explore over 80 unique vendors. Please don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets or to become a vendor. We'll see you in Eatonville, the oldest Black incorporated municipality in the country.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan Fulford, joined by my man, D2K Fergus, where you can find him on X, Chris Ferguson, D2Football.com, also co-host with Stephen Gaither on HBCU Game Day. He and Steve break down the Division II ranks, and of course, Chris always on top of what's going on in the CIAA. Chris, first time we've had a chance to catch up this football season, man. How you been?
Doing all right. Just busy as always. A lot of things going on in football, a lot of things going outside of football. So just hanging in there really as we go through the season.
So let me go with, as we think back to the preseason in the CIAA, did you have any thought, any wild dreams, or maybe wishes? Maybe you probably had some wishes, but any thoughts that the CIAA would be the best HBCU D2 conference right now. Just what we've seen. I mean, the first year away from divisions, and the South has gone nuts. The South is like running the conference. I mean, yes, Virginia Union is still the standard, but when you look at what the teams in the South are doing, it's fascinating. What's been your thought as you think back to preseason, and here we are coming towards the last third of the season?
Well, the top of the conference isn't really a surprise. Virginia State was the preseason favorite by the coaches, and that really stood out. That was a real surprise because, you have Virginia Union that just won the title last year. But we kind of knew Johnson C. Smith was going to be looking to try to replace some key players, and they've certainly exceeded expectations with Darius Ocean at quarterback, and that's allowed them to run the table so far. I think where the surprise has been is the middle of the conference. Bowie State really has fallen to the bottom, but kind of who's risen up in the meantime is Livingstone, Wichita State, Shaw, all of those teams having wins against, well, 2 of the 3 have wins against the SIAC in particular. And that Shaw and Albany game really stood out, because Albany was sort of projected to be at the top of the conference, and Shaw taking that win on the road. It's like, wow, like I didn't see that coming. I thought Allen would be a little better, but Livingstone has really taken some steps too, and Livingstone able to eke a win out there. I think there were some pleasant surprises, but it's the conference, the way it's played, it's definitely exceeded expectations this year.
And one of those teams that has exceeded expectations is Johnson C. Smith. I think we thought Johnson C. Smith would be better. I don't know if we necessarily thought that they would be what they have been. 7-0. It almost is sort of reminiscent of what we saw a couple years ago from Benedict. If we think back to Benedict, like, I just remember the year before, you saw that the makings were there. You're like, oh, okay, the coach is there with the philosophy and the attitude and the structure is there for them to be good. And then they just started winning and kept winning. And then as we're talking to people from Benedict were like, oh, this is the first time we've been 3-0. Oh, this is the first time we've been 4-0. Lord have mercy, this is the first time we're 6-0. And I mean, it just went on the whole season where they just went unblemished. And I feel like we're doing a similar thing with Johnson C. Smith this year. At this point, I'm a believer. I told you it took me a minute to be a believer, but I'm a believer. And I'm no hands down. I don't know if mathematically they're already assured a spot in the championship game. I think they still have to. No, okay, so mathematically they still got some competition and games to play, but they look on their way if things continue going the path that they're going, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I think people don't realize that Johnson C. Smith was pretty wounded towards the end of last year. They were, using like a freshman quarterback and another one that didn't have a lot of positive, like, playing experience that really worked out in their favor. And so that really makes a difference in Maurice Flowers' offense. If you really don't have a really a quarterback that can truly make that offense run, they made some things happen in the run game. They kind of went back to what the CIAA has been over the years as a strong, like, running conference. But against the top half of the programs, that only takes you so far. And so, I figured they were going to do something in the offseason. And remember, last year their defense was like really strong, like statistically towards the top of not just the conference but the nation, and that's just done nothing but continue. JCSU is only giving up, like, I think it's like 12 points a game on defense, and so, a combination of those two things is like, man, and I think you kind of saw that starting out against Tuskegee, kind of up and down, but sort of hanging in there and taking those shots. I think sometimes the play calling might be a little conservative for my liking, but man, when it's time to turn it on, I mean, they just sort of let it rip. And that's definitely what you want to see out of a top tier team.
One of the things that I find myself really impressed with from Johnson C is they may have one of the, if not the best wide receiver in Division II football, but I've heard somebody say pro caliber wide receiver in Brevin Campbell, who right now, as I'm just looking at statistics, and I don't have the NCAA numbers because I know he was up there, but just 7 games played, has 59 receptions, 833 yards, 8 touchdowns this season. And I don't know, the NCAA numbers are pretty impressive as well. If he was not at the top, he might be at the top. I mean, just the other night, I think he had like 11 catches. I mean, he's had multiple. Well, heck, you can do the math. I mean, you're almost at 60 catches in 7 games. So you've had double-digit catches in at least 3 or 4 games this season for Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, Brevin, his numbers dipped last year merely because of the quarterback situation, but his freshman year, he kind of came out just sort of snatching everything out of the air. And he's very good in open space too. He runs routes and he kind of finds those places where it seems to be wide open at times, and he's also made some acrobatic catches as well. But JCSU isn't just Brevin. It's also Brian Morgan, who used to play at Fayetteville State, Tyreek Williams as well, who've also had games. They've had games where they sort of led the game in receiving yards instead of Brevin, because teams sort of keyed in on him quite a bit.
Yeah, last night against Shaw, Brevin had 15 catches, 182 yards, and a score. I just pulled up the NCAA stats. He is second in the nation in yards, in receiving yards, with 833 is about almost 100 behind the number 2 guy. And in terms of receptions, his 59 is one shy of someone else. And his 8 touchdowns are definitely top 5. So, I mean, he's trending I don't know if there's it's kind of hard to be the Harlan Hill winner as a receiver. I think, receivers just get that kind of slight anyway. But when you look at best receivers, and he's just a junior. So, look, I mean, he's doing that this year. There could be still more to come from him in this offense for Johnson C. Let's take a look at the standings here in a second for people who aren't familiar with the standings right now. Of course, again, the first year that the CIAA moves away from a North and a South division. Johnson C 4-0 in conference play, 7-0 overall. Virginia Union also 4-0 right now, 5-2 overall. Then sitting right behind him, your beloved Winston-Salem State Rams, 4-1, 6-2. And right behind them, Virginia State, 3-1, 4-3, and Livingstone, 3-2, 5-3. That was a big game. I call that an elimination game, Chris. I did. Honestly, Winston-Salem gets a 31-17 win. Livingstone coming off the high and winning 4 in a row. What have you liked the most about seeing your Rams do what they've been doing this year?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Winston State's kind of been through the gauntlet this year. When you look at what their conference games were, they had to play Virginia State, Virginia Union, Shaw, Livingstone, all with winning records, or winning records at the time, right? And so the last 2 games have really been elimination games, because that Shaw Winston-Salem State game, whoever lost is going to be 2 conference losses at that point, and then you got to Livingstone, and now you're at this point where this weekend's game is basically to take that top spot, take that number 1, number 2 spot to get into the championship game. The one thing I really like about Winston State is they seem to have diversified the offense a little bit more. The play calling has been pretty impressive. Before yesterday, Winston was converting 53% of their third downs. It didn't matter if they're in a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, they're still finding ways to convert those third downs. And that's really impressive when you're trying to keep the chains moving and maybe even flip field position if nothing else. The other thing, the offensive line has been relatively healthy until I would say somewhat recently. So that's really helped with pass protection. And then the secondary for Winston State, it seems like every game, multiple games where they've at least got 1 interception. They had 3 yesterday against Livingstone, including a pick 6. And another one that could have been a pick 6. So they certainly have all the tools to go the distance. And it will certainly be interesting to see how things play out over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, the obviously this weekend, the Johnson C. Smith game, it's a home game. And then what would have been a game against Elizabeth City now kind of sits there as an open date. I don't think it was ever filled with another game, was it?
For who?
Winston-Salem.
No, that would have been St. Aug.
Or I'm sorry, St. Aug. St. Aug, yeah, St. Aug.
Yeah, they took that as a second bye, and what they ended up doing was to get a 10 game season. They played week 0.
Oh, right. Played at Bluefield State in week 0. Right. And then, of course, the end of the season, November 9th against Fayetteville. Now, because of the departure of St. Aug, it's now a 7-game, if I'm not mistaken, it's the last 7 games on your schedule, which make up conference schedule, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, didn't that benefit Virginia Union? If I'm not mistaken, it benefited Virginia Union because Virginia Union lost what would have been a conference game had there been St. Aug on the schedule for everybody. But because it happened when it happened, it ends up being a benefit, and that's why Virginia Union is still sitting unbeaten right now. Man, I'll tell you how that works out. Any scuttle or frustrations about that, or is it just people have kind of accepted it as it is?
I think at this point, people are still those who understand it, accept it. I think a lot of folks are still like, wait, what happened here? Like, how did we get to this point? But yeah, the conference had moved to an 8-game conference schedule, and then St. Aug ended up not fielding a team, and so that was sort of the adjustment. And so now, you kind of wonder, do they continue with the 8-game schedule going into next year? Do they try to reintroduce another out of conference game, which is not easy to fill?
Right.
Those out of conference games, we've seen a lot of schools in Division II having to get really creative with non-conference because they can't fill those games. And I feel like almost every year lately, it's been Grand Valley trying to fill out a schedule, and nobody wants to play them out of conference because it's such a competitive game, and you also don't want to risk injury. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do next year if they want to remain at an 8-game conference schedule. But I think overall it's been pretty good for the conference to have 8 games.
And for anybody who missed the memo, the announcement or release, I think it was last weekend or the week before, that all of St. Augustine's athletic programs were suspended from competing in the CIAA. Now, that was the CIAA making that statement. It wasn't necessarily St. Augustine, because I think even so much as they were still trying to or wanting to compete in other sports, but obviously here comes basketball and all the other things, and I think the CIAA just kind of said, look, you guys need to get your house in order, and hopefully we can address this in the spring. But like you said, it does bring up the dilemma. I mean, football schedules are starting to start getting created in the spring, and if you have this uncertainty about one of your member institutions, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, Chris, if this goes 2 years and next year they just work. I think you can work around having an 8-game schedule, but obviously what affected everybody this year is you had the schedule made, and then in the summer you come to find out, wait a minute, you're not going to do what? And then leaves everybody scrambling. And so I think if you go into the spring with the commitment from everybody, you can go ahead and get the schedule. I don't know. That's just my take. What's you want a similar thought there?
Agree. Because yeah, like when you get that late in the season, you're gonna have like these really oddball matchups, if any at all. I mean, looking for Valley State, right? They just played South Carolina State in what is normally traditionally like a conference schedule. And you get to like week 8, week 9, you're not filling those games. Like Shaw's season is going to end a week sooner because they don't play St. Aug to finish the season now. So it was pretty sad. But I would say too, like who wants to run the risk of having canceled games? You
Yes,
know,
right,
and,
right.
or St. Aug's had issue with paying vendors and things like that, and you sold tickets and everything, and then you can't all of a sudden play a game. Like, who wants to go through that?
Right,
you know.
right. Yeah. All right. So coming up here in essentially the final 3 weeks of the season. Obviously, I think that the big game of the week coming up is Johnson C traveling to Winston-Salem. It's 1:00 there in Winston-Salem. And then I think from that point, you know what, regardless of what happens, I don't think because the South is still competitive, Johnson C, this is not easy. You mentioned the tough road that Winston-Salem State had, but Johnson C still has a tough road. I mean, they've got to, not only after they play the Rams, then the following week they host Fayetteville State, who's traditionally been what they've been, and then how about the commemorative classic being actually worth? It might actually be worth somebody going to a championship game. As Johnson C and Livingstone will play on November 9th. What's your, as we get ready to kind of wrap up here, Chris, how do you handicap, or what's your prediction for who would be in the championship game on I believe it's November 16th?
Oh gosh, it's so early in the week to make that prediction because it all hinges on like this game. It all hinges on this game this weekend, man. Like, oh man, and I know I'm going to get asked the same question like on the next show.
Prepping you for it.
I mean, Johnson C. Smith is certainly in the driver's seat, right? But the one thing that really stands out is all of those tough games that they had. They played those games at home.
Yeah.
They played Virginia State at home, Virginia at home, Shaw at home. They've now got to go on the road to Livingstone and on the road to Winston-Salem State.
Yeah, two of the next three.
Yeah, two of the next three. So that alone is a very tough test away from home. And Winston-Salem State, they've had instances of getting in occasions like this, and they just completely drop the ball and fumble the bag. So I don't know. I saw this tweet online. It was like, how do you feel about this week's game? And I saw it was a Ram that said, I'm scared. That's how I feel right now, because you just don't really know what to expect out of Winston-Salem State. They've let you down so many times. Livingstone, I think they can play spoiler. I think that's about it. I think this is really between Winston-Salem State and JCSU at this point.
Yeah, I'm just really fascinated as I look over the next 3 weeks, the teams in the South, the matchups are just so interesting. And I'm not even talking about, I mean, we spent most of this time together and have not talked about Virginia Union at all.
Yep.
I don't know if anyone really is going to challenge them with what's left. I mean, they got Bowie.
No.
Then they've got let me see, who's that? Oh, then they host Bluefield.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And so at that point, you go into the contest against Virginia State. Maybe that could be interesting from the standpoint of if Virginia State still has a loss and only a loss, that game becomes important where Union has to win. But if State falters, let's say if State trips up on themselves here, which I don't know, they got who they got? They got Bluefield and Lincoln. So it's it's not likely. So,
no.
Yeah. So there is still an outside shot for somebody from the South. Realistically, two teams from the South could still find their way in the championship game, possibly.
It's possible, but the likelihood is no. I mean, because Winston State's already lost to Union.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, is Union would have to lose twice, and Winston State would have to win out, and then Johnson Smith could take Union's spot because of the tiebreaker. Well, I would assume would be the tiebreaker, because that's kind of that weird scheduling where it counted for one, it didn't count for the other. But it's possible, but I will be looking at that Virginia Union game to decide another entrant into the championship game.
And I'm reminded here that anything can happen as Virginia State lost to ECSU this time last year. So to quote the great Kevin Garnett, anything is possible. It's like anything could happen here.
Okay, so person behind that account, are you saying Bluefield's gonna be the one? Are you saying Bluefield's gonna be the one? I just want to know.
Could Bluefield be the ECSU of 2024? That would be amazing. That would be amazing, right? Anything's possible. Chris, go ahead and give a shout out. Let people know when they can find your show. You and Steve always enjoy listening to you guys because you guys have a great feel and grasp of what's happening on the D2 level. So let people know where they can find you guys on HBCU Game Day.
Well, HBCU Game Day, we have a show, D2 HBCU Football Matters. It is Wednesday at 7 o'clock and Eastern. And then also in about an hour, I'll be on my Sunday night show with the national show for Division II, which we will be talking about HBCU football on there as well because there's just so many storylines. And so you can catch me there as well. Catch me on X at D2K Ferg, where I try to keep up with all the games. Feels like the Red Zone channel on Saturdays, and I also put out a weekly column. Lately, it's been on Fridays, the day before. But yeah, a lot going on during the season. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely been very engaging, and that's how you can find me. And I am looking forward to going to some more games this year.
Speaking of just the D2 landscape in general, the number one team in the nation. I think I saw someone retweet that the number one team in the FBS, the number one team in the FCS, and the number one team on the D2 level all lost on Saturday.
Yes.
Who was that? Who was that number one on the D2 level that lost?
That was Harding, who traveled to Ouachita Baptist. Their both programs are in Arkansas. Ouachita was ranked 11 in the D2football.com poll, and it was a 17-13 win by Ouachita. So that just sort of creates upheaval at the top of the polls, and certainly in Super Region 3. So I was at the game. I just happened to be passing through, so I stopped in to watch the game. It was a great game. It was an amazing game. It was a chess match. So yeah, that's what happened yesterday at the Division II level.
And one of the things that I know Drew, when I was talking to him earlier, he said that the rankings will start to come out next week after Saturday's games. And he is not very optimistic about the SIAC's chances should someone other than, I think he said if I may be misquoting him, but I think he said I don't know if it's Miles, but somehow whoever at the top, like Miles needs to win the SIC in order for the SIC to have a team get in, because anybody else, and they probably won't get a champion in. I guess that's kind of where his thoughts were. You kind of agree with that sentiment, right?
Yeah, the fact that the SIAC did so poorly in out-of-conference play, the CIAA swept them, and they had their chances against Gulf South. Miles played West Alabama, who was ranked but lost yesterday to Delta State, and so it's creating this sort of jam between the CIAA, the Gulf South, and the South Atlantic Conference, and Miles if it's Miles or possibly Clark, I guess maybe, but they're at risk of having to use earned access, which is basically like after 7, if you're like 8 or 9 in the poll in the rankings, then you're a conference champion. You're the highest rated team in that conference, and nobody else from the conference is in the poll. Then you could take the 7th spot. But outside of that, it looks like Miles might be that one shot. Maybe Fort Valley, maybe. They're not going to get in, and it's happened before, and it's not just HBCUs that have fallen victim to not getting into the playoffs as well. So I agree. I totally agree.
All right. All right. Good stuff. Hey, I appreciate your time tonight, Chris. Have a good show tonight. And I will look forward to watching you and Steven on Wednesday nights. If I don't catch it live, because we got all kinds of stuff ourselves going on Wednesday. I always catch the podcast on Thursday. So good stuff. And we'll see how this CIAA. Oh, last question, I promise. Do you think that 2 teams from the CIAA can get to the playoffs? Yes or no?
Yes, I do think so.
Okay. Love it. All right. Make sure you guys find at D2KFerg is where you can find Chris. Don't forget to check out the show, D2Football.com later tonight, or make sure to find him and Steven, D2 Football Matters, Wednesday night on HBCU Game Day. HBCU Game Day, obviously on YouTube or HBCUGameDay.com. All right, Chris, appreciate your time tonight. Thank you, man.
Hey, thanks for the invite. Good to catch up with you.
Yes, sir. All right. You guys make sure to follow Chris there. Coming up right here on the other side of the break, I think I got my guy Brad. Brad's itching to talk a little bit about Bethune-Cookman's big win, as well as get into a preview of the MEAC. So I'm going to make sure he's good to go. And then coming up a little later at the bottom of the hour, Mo Carter will come in, and Mo and I will kind of preview the look at the SWAC as well. Maybe even get into talking a little bit about this, definitely the Magic City Classic. I appreciate all of you in the chat room. You J State fans in there having fun, boy. Good. Hey, that's what happens. You win. You can celebrate. You can talk your talk, Jackson State. You deserve it. Your team came through and did well. So hey, we'll see how you guys fare over the next 5 weeks, and then we'll go from there. If I don't have Brad, I'll go ahead and drop the BCSN new top 5 rankings here coming up. So stay tuned. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap right here on the Black College Sports Network. I'll be back in just a moment.
Choice Hotels is a family of brands that helps you get the most for your money so you can be any traveler you want to be.
You could be a free hot breakfast hero at a comfort hotel.
Yes!
That's how you waffle.
Mr. This Script got a plot twist at a Radisson hotel.
A business big leaguer.
Go for key.
Even the ultimate pool float inflator.
With 22 brands and the best value for your money, Choice Hotels has a stay for any you. Book direct at choicehotels.com, where travels come true. Gotta get the corners.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working.
Never not working. Never ever not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield. Never not working.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan Fulford here. Joining me in a few will be Brad Gillens. But before Brad comes on to talk with me regarding the MEAC preview and the Bethune game coming up, just again, some of those top matchups from last week. And, I don't know what you guys, obviously the Jackson State 35-21 win over FAMU was pretty big. But you also had Southern's 24-14 win over Alcorn at homecoming. And just think about where Southern had here's the arc of being a fan, and just, we kind of joke in the mornings about the ledge and just where being a fan puts you emotionally. 2 weeks ago, Southern was coming off of probably one of their worst losses in recent memory, a 51-3. Slacking at home to a Nickel State team, right? They rebound from that, are on the verge of snatched victory from the jaws of defeat against Texas Southern, where it took a muffed punt to give them an opportunity to tie the game. They win in overtime. They get a road win in the SWAC, and then come back at home, in a must-win game, really, against Alcorn, and to get a win. I mean, how big is that for Southern? And all of a sudden, now Southern playing with confidence heading into their matchup this week as they come to Tallahassee to take on FAMU, a wounded Rattlers team that, it may just be the fan base that's asking a lot of questions. But, again, when you are playing against Jackson State, and again, just to give those numbers again, I saw some of you comment about them, and I'll bring in Brad, and I'm gonna come in. I'm gonna bring Brad in, and Brad. How you doing tonight, man?
Hey, good evening. How you doing, sir?
Look, here are the numbers that I gave out earlier.
Okay.
17, 776, 60, and 1. 17 is the number of games that FAMU had won in the SWAC.
Okay.
Dating back to September 5th, 2022.
Okay.
That's also 776 days without a loss to a SWAC opponent.
Okay.
60 in the 4 meetings between Jackson State and FAMU since joining the SWAC.
Right.
FAMU has not scored a point against Jackson State, being outscored 60-0.
Got it.
60-0. And the one is simply, I'll let you go ahead and get that. And the one is the one opponent that beat FAMU since joining the SWAC, and that's Jackson State.
Okay. So here's what I'd say. First and foremost, none of those records mean anything to me because FAMU hasn't won in Oliver C. Dawson Stadium at Willie Jeffries Field.
We won there. What was that? We won there the last time we were there. Stop it.
So here's where we're going. Everything is everything. Everything is everything. And like, for the most part, I am extremely surprised that FAMU did not go to Jackson and take care of business, because I fully expected that the Rattlers were going to go to Jackson and make sure that they came back, number one in the SWAC East. That's no longer the case. Jackson State is now the king of the SWAC East until that's what the record says. Bryan, you can say what you want to say. You can. Okay. I know. That's just what it is, right? All right. Secondly, we had a dream scenario, and we talked about this in the first week of the Orange and Green podcast where we talked about South Carolina State and Florida and them possibly meeting up in the Celebration Bowl against each other. You guys didn't do your job.
No, they didn't. They didn't do.
You guys didn't do your job. You didn't hold up your end of the bargain, and as a result of that, I'm not puffing my chest out because we play Delaware State next week, and then the week after we play North Carolina Central, and North Carolina Central looks really, really good this year, really good.
Yeah.
So it may be a situation where I don't know whether we may be able to get over that hump or not, right? But at the end of the day, I will say this. Kudos to Anthony Richardson and the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh, stop.
I'm just saying.
Yes, just in case. I saw people asking, look, people see me wearing blue.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
People see me wearing blue, and they think it's like, oh, look, forced front. No, look, y'all, come on now. I am not wearing blue. The only time I wear blue is if it's these guys right here or my Indiana Pacers. That's the only time I'm wearing blue. Even though my high school that I teach and coach at, our colors are blue and gold. But trust me, I don't care.
Also, real quick, I do want to give one shout out. Mm-hmm. Shout out to everybody in the Volusia County area and all of that good stuff. Bethune-Cookman got their first win of the year against Mississippi Valley State, and
I'm sure it was going to happen.
While I'm not sure whether it's going to keep coach's job. Thankfully, they were able to do what they were able to do. So you got to go from there. But
hold on. I can't let you all past that. The bottom of the barrel bowl took place in Mississippi. The only one I did not see the one team going to Mississippi from Florida and getting a win being Bethune-Cookman. Didn't see it happening.
Right.
But I remember what I text you. I text you when I saw the line.
Yes,
moving.
sir. Yes, sir.
For me, that worried me. Not gonna lie, Brad, that worried the hell out of me because I kept saying, why is the number moving from 6 to 8? Which means people are putting money on Bethune.
Yes, the line moved. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and Bethune gets a 20-10 win. So anybody who was on Bethune, you were happy. I don't know how it happened. I couldn't watch but so much of the game. It was kind of a bad watch. But they had a 14.
It wasn't a really clean football game.
No. Well, I mean, when you have two winless teams, you're not expecting a clean game. But what surprised me is I thought Valley, when I think back a week earlier, and this was my handicap, I thought of the two teams playing against the two Alabama schools, Valley was able to put up more points on, I believe they played Alabama A&M. Then what I saw Bethune, who was on the road was it the second consecutive week that Bethune was on the road?
Yes.
Yeah, second consecutive week that they were on the road taking on Bama State. And I'm thinking they're cooked. Going to Valley, I thought Bethune was cooked, but I guess they rallied. They found a way to get it done, which
was that like a Freudian slip? They were cooked.
It just happens. It just rolls off the tongue. It wasn't intentional. But you have some knowledge and you know about what's happening with Bethune. So I mean, before we kind of get into talking about South Carolina State and the MEAC, and look, I see Lennon Blow here. Lennon, you write off everybody's job. But anyway, how do you assess where things are with Raymond Woody and this Bethune program?
1,000%. I think Woody is a heck of a recruiter. He knows how to bring guys in. He knows what it takes to bring guys into the world's most famous beach. Let's just be honest. It's the world's most famous beach, and he knows how to bring guys in, right? But
I don't know if that still has weight.
No, it is.
You say that like it's 1985.
No,
right?
It is.
That has weight in 1985, 1995.
It still is.
Okay. All right.
Brian, it still is. But he needs to have his offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. He might need to have a cup of Jesus moment with them. Seriously. And the reason I say that is because he's got talent. His talent is just not doing what it's supposed to do. Like, seriously. And if he had the right coordinators in those areas, I think that team is in a very different place than they are right now.
All right. Well, Bethune, they return home this upcoming Saturday, and they will host Jackson State. So, Jackson State's riding high. We'll see.
Okay.
Not expecting much, but we'll see. It is, again, you lost to a Division II. The low point of the season could have been losing this game to Valley, but it still is. You lost to a Division II team, a game that you should have won. We're supposed to. So I don't know. Well, at least they won't be winless. So there you go. I mean, if you want to go ahead and flip and start talking about South Carolina State, I'm ready. I'm ready for it. I bet you are. Look, all right. Okay, so here we go. The MEAC schedule begins this weekend. Finally, the non-conference ends. In many polls, North Carolina Central is the top team in HBCU football. They were the top in the BCSN top 5. They were the top in Dr. Cavill's poll. They were top in the HBCU Pro Sports Media. Anybody who's got a poll or ranking, whether it be computers or anything else, says it's North Carolina Central. Now we get, after North Carolina Central has already played one conference game against probably maybe the weakest team, Norfolk State, if not the weakest, the weakest one or two teams. So that leaves really 4 conference games left on the schedule for North Carolina Central. What's your take on Central? I mean, as you look into going into this MEAC, I mean, before we talk about potential teams that could beat them, what do you think are their strengths and weaknesses as you've seen them thus far in the last 6-7 games?
Their quarterback's dynamic. He can run, he can throw it. He's got the total package. Their run game is good. Their passing game is good. Their defense is solid. So I have nothing but respect for them. Here's the thing with North Carolina Central, when it specifically comes to South Carolina State, is there is a level of revenge. And I know you're saying, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, Brad?
It played out last year. The revenge factor played out last year.
But no, I know you're saying, what are you talking about, Brad? So Chennis Berry was the head coach of the HBCU Legacy Bowl.
Okay.
And oh my God,
I know where you're going.
Guy's name? 11.
Trey Oliver.
11.
Davius Richard.
Davius Richard, right. So he's playing, and they run a read option, and he runs and gets hurt. And it hurts his draft. It hurts his draft prospects. And so Trey went on Twitter and, spoke about it and all those good things and all that good stuff, so on and so forth. So I'm certain that he hasn't forgotten about that. And so his opportunity to be able to come back to, his opportunity to be able to come back and play the Bulldogs with Chittisberry as head coach, he's licking his chops. Of course. Of course he is.
Interesting. And that matchup that you're referring to, not this weekend, but it's the Thursday following Saturday's game. Halloween, October 31st, Thursday. I think that's on ESPN or ESPNU.
It is.
North Carolina Central traveling to South Carolina State.
Right.
That's an interesting angle, Brad. You were the first person to bring that up. So if I hear it later on down the road, I'm gonna give you credit for that angle. And it's funny you say that because the MEAC was decided last year based in part to the revenge game by Howard versus North Carolina Central.
Yes, sir. Right? That's right. That's right.
I mean,
Larry Scott.
Larry Scott. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And the 50 and the whole preseason. We put 50 on him, and it just so happened what did Howard do to Central? Put 50 on them their own ballpark. So
exactly.
That's interesting, Brad.
Well, I try to find these different things that make things interesting, if you will, so on and so forth.
This week to set the table in the opening weekend of the MEAC, sort of the first full weekend of games. Howard travels to Norfolk State. Delaware State comes to Orangeburg to take on South Carolina State.
Mm-hmm.
And Morgan travels to North Carolina Central. Now, with the exception of Howard and South Carolina State, who played yesterday, the other four teams were on a bye.
Mm-hmm.
They had a bye. So let me before you get into talking about that South Carolina State, Delaware State game, and even just South Carolina State's prospects, which South Carolina State has three of the two at home. Which if you only play 5 conference games, it kind of matters how many of those are home and away, right? I think it does matter because it's going to be a 3-2 skew. Morgan State versus Central. Morgan State was everybody's darling. I think people were more high on Morgan State in the preseason than South Carolina State.
Right.
But I think what we've seen is of the two teams that have pretty good defenses, only one really has a good offense, and that's South Carolina State's offense.
Right. Facts.
Can Morgan's defense do enough to either play spoiler in this division, or can they pull off an upset early?
I'll be honest. Is the game in Durham or is it in Hughes Stadium?
It's in Durham. It's in Durham.
That's tough. Now, I'm going to tell you, Damon Wilson's defense is going to travel with him. It's going to travel with him. And they're going to be competitive, at least for the first half. I think Coach Trey and his offensive staff will make adjustments where they are good enough that they will be able to make those changes in the second half to eke out the game.
Right.
So I think Central ends up winning the game at the end of the day, but it won't be a blowout. That's for sure, because Damon Wilson won't allow that.
Last year, the game at Morgan was a 16-10 victory for North Carolina Central. And Central had sort of owned this series on the last, let me see, they're on a 1, 2, 3, 4, on a 6-game winning streak against Morgan. So Morgan's, there's a lot to overcome in this contest. And Central actually had to overcome trailing in the fourth quarter to win that contest. So it sets up for an interesting match. Let's as you look at South Carolina State and what they have in front of them, I mentioned the 3-2. As I look here at the South Carolina State schedule, I think I saw the first two are home. Obviously, hold on. Why did I even go there? Hold on. I had the schedule pulled up. Okay, so they've got Delaware State at home, North Carolina Central at home, right? Then they travel to Howard, travel to Morgan, and end the season at home against Norfolk State. So three of the two. What's the game that worries you the most again for South Carolina State?
The North Carolina Central game.
Okay,
that's it. That's it. We overcome that game. We're in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
We overcome that game. We're in Atlanta, hands down. And as long as we can, I'm going to use what Coach Chinnisberry says. As long as we can overcome those sins, those self-inflicted negatives, right?
Nothing like those self-inflicted wounds. But
as long as we can do that, we're in good shape. We have the offense to be able to with Eric Phoenix as our trigger man.
Player of the year
with DeAndre Duhart and 17. I can't remember. His name escapes me right now. But if I got Caden High at wide receiver, and I got Justice Smith Brown, and I got Enosh Carter. If I got those guys and my tight end number 5, when I got those guys and that I know can produce for me every single time, and then on defense, when I got an Aaron Carter, when I got a Jaden Broughton, when I got those guys that I know I can count
on. Will a one-loss team, the last 2 seasons, a one-loss team in this new MEAC, a one-loss team, I don't think anyone has gone, I'm not sure since the departures of Bethune and FAM, I don't think in the new MEAC format, I don't think anybody has gone unbeaten in conference play. The last 2 years, it's come down to this tiebreaker thing. Will we look at it? Will we see a similar scenario this year, or do you think someone will go 5-0?
In a perfect world, I'm hoping no. I'm hoping we go undefeated. I'm hoping South Carolina State goes undefeated.
Fair. All right. Fair.
I'm hoping they go undefeated. But if they don't, then I would just love to see where the chips fall where they may, and that's just it. All of the teams in the conference are really, really good. Like they all do really good things really well. It's just a matter of where you are at that point. Like I'll give you a perfect example. If we had played FAMU in week 9 versus week 1, we win.
Okay, I'm not going to argue because looking at where the 2 teams are then and now, okay, I see where you're going.
You see what I'm saying? So, and I know for a lot of FAMU folks, listen, I love y'all to death. You already know I got love for FAMU all day, every day. But week 9 versus week 1, we're a different team.
No doubt. I respect and I like what I see from South Carolina State. I think so many interesting storylines. I mean, we're a week ahead of ourselves talking about Central and South Carolina State.
Right. We basically already talking about what the MEAC championship game is going to be, and we know it's going to be Central versus SC State. Like that's what it is.
That's the game you're circling.
That's the game. That's the game everybody's circling. Yes.
Brad Gillens is on wax right here on the SportsWrap is saying that.
I'm saying it right now.
October 31st, Thursday night, Central, South Carolina State, the winner will be in the celebration.
Yes, absolutely. But you know the good thing about it. Either way, Bryan, I'm gonna be there regardless.
Yeah, exactly. But your team though. Anyway, Brad, I appreciate it. How did the Commanders do tonight? I think
wait a minute. I don't know if you saw it.
I saw that. I won my first half bet on the Commanders -3.5. I didn't see the whole game. Though.
I think it was 30. I think it was 34, 37 to 4, or 34 to 7, something like that.
I'm mad at. Look? Just give me one play. Can the Commanders win the NFC East? Because if so, I may go put something.
But Brad, I won the battle. But I lost the war.
Oh, what happened?
My wife is a Carolina fan.
You stuck in the office tonight? Is that what it is? Or you can take that jersey off?
I'm be sleeping in here, bro.
Don't come out that office wearing that jersey. There it is.
Absolutely.
All right, Brad. Let people know where they can find you on
listen,
social if they want to hit you up.
If you guys are looking for me, you can find me at Czar Telestrator on Twitter. CZARTLESTRATOR on Twitter. That's where I am. You can always find me there. Always good sports content. Always good, whatever, what have you. Please reach out and happy to engage.
Nah, you be at Coronas, dog. You be at Coronas and don't be telling me.
Oh, and look, and whoever is, I'd rather be golfing. Say I'll see you at Coronas. I'm downtown Coronas. I'm in Sanford.
Where's my invite? I don't ever get an invite. I don't ever get a text. Come on, Brad. We're in the same city. I don't get a text or nothing.
Bryan, that's too easy. That's too easy.
That's too easy. I'm gonna hang up and talk to you off air then. See.
Yes, sir.
All right. Be well, Brad.
All right. Y'all take care.
Yep. Peace.
All right.
Good stuff. I always enjoy my guy, Brad. Hey, let me take a short break and come back with Mo Carter here on the other side. We're going to get into talking about the Magic City Classic. The ramifications of this game are bigger than maybe what many people thought they would be. And I'll get Mo's take on the shakeup in the SWAC as well. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap right here on the Black Collar Sports Network. I'll be back in just a moment.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
This is Bryan Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show. Welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan Fulford here, and it's a pleasure to be joined by my guy, Mo Carter, Sports Director, WZDX in Huntsville, Alabama. Mo, homecoming, man. Congrats to your Southern Jaguars getting a win on homecoming, man. How's it feel?
Oh, definitely felt great, Bryan. And before we even get into that, thanks for having me on, man. It's been a while, so I'm glad to be able to link back up with you and whatnot. And actually, by the time the end of this interview, I'm gonna have to get some tidbits from you about my future plans as well. But as far as homecoming, yeah, it was great to see the Jaguars not only get a victory, see Coach Graves' company, ascend to the number 1 spot in the Western Division, and do it in front of a raucous crowd, sellout crowd, and just play a great game overall from top to bottom. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it down there, just due to timing and scheduling and things of that nature. But, Dr. McClellan always says, make sure that if you're not in the stands, you're in front of those televisions and getting those tick marks for, the ESPN digital platform. So my wife and my son and I were in the living room with our Southern gear on watching it last night.
Yeah, 26,000. I'm just looking here. 26,685 in attendance. Southern, of course, covers the 2.5-point spread. Look, I'm not gonna lie, Mo. What an interesting 3 weeks it's been for Jaguar Nation, right? You go from the embarrassing loss to Nichols to snatching a victory out of the jaws of defeat in Houston. And then you turn around, have to play Alcorn, and you pretty much do what you want to do on the ground. I mean, almost 300 yards of rushing. I don't know who's coming. I don't know what type of Southern team's coming to Tallahassee, but I'll tell you what, I'm not as confident as I might have been maybe about 4 weeks ago. Let me just say it like that.
I'll say this. I totally agree with you. One thing you can say is that at the end of the day, Southern has made improvements from that stanza that you talked about, from facing Nichols to going up against Texas Southern and literally digging deep down to get a victory out of that. And then, pulling off a pretty impressive victory last night as well. So I think that, they have an upward trajectory. For the fan in me, I'm definitely hoping that they can continue it rolling on or whatever. I mean, thankfully, they're 3-0 in SWAC play, and 3 of those games are in the division. So head-to-head tiebreakers definitely will help out with that situation. But honestly, I think they really need to look at last night's film, see all the things they did well, and then capitalize on it. There were still some missed opportunities as well. I mean, they had some early turnovers that they got from Alcorn State, but Alcorn's defense dug deep and was able to stop Southern twice in the red zone on 4th and short. So, you think about if they get points from there, that game may be a blowout by the time halftime rolls around. So, it just depends on what they decide to do moving forward. And, of course, it's all about adjustments, moving forward. And, of course, as they get ready to go to Tallahassee this week, for sure, they've got to have, their best game plans together. And I know that Rattler squad is going to be fired up, especially after losing to Jackson State the way they did on Saturday.
Yeah. Speaking of FAMU and just, well, let me stay on the West side before I even come to talking about FAMU and that game of the year.
Okay.
The West is fascinating. Alcorn jumps out to a quick 3-0 lead. 3 wins, no losses, and everyone's kind of feeling good about Alcorn. Then they lose, and then we looked up, and honestly, I hadn't even realized until after the game that Southern was 3-0. I'm not even gonna lie. I looked up and said, wait a minute, Southern's 3-0? I'm like, what? I feel like I missed something, right? So given the standings, and even if Southern loses this upcoming week, they still have the tiebreaker over Alcorn, obviously.
Correct.
And then it just comes down to, now you got the final 4 games where you have Alabama A&M a week after the Magic City Classic. So that could go any number of ways. You can either have a team that is on an emotional high or a team that they maybe have checked out. I don't know. And then you've got Bethune, UAPB, and then Grambling. I mean, is it a I know we're only at the halfway point, Mo, but is it a stretch to really say that Southern kind of controls their own destiny at this point of the season based on the schedule, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Southern definitely controls their own destiny based on the schedule. Matter of fact, I listened to some of Coach Graves' post-game stuff via one of our sister stations, Louisiana, and that's exactly what he said, that, we're going to put this one to bed, and then after that, they have to, focus on what's next. They can't look too far ahead, but at the same time, they understand what's at hand and what they have to do each and every week. And, of course, you don't want to look too far in the future or whatever, but for the next one, sure, the game against Florida A&M is not a divisional game, but it's still a SWAC game. So SWAC games can definitely still cost you, a spot in the SWAC championship, especially if you know how the rules go and how the tiebreakers go and stuff on that. So for sure, they can't lay down against the Rattlers in Bragg Memorial Stadium, a place that an opponent has not won in quite some time. As a matter of fact, I need to do my research for this upcoming week, as a matter of fact, with that. But no, they definitely control their own destiny, but at the same time, they can't let up as they go into the final 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah. Moving over to what I think was the game of the year. And what a great weekend in college football. Like, it was the first really big weekend where not only was it, I think it was big for the HBCU world. I spotlighted earlier in the show all of the big games, Division II and FCS. The major college FBS level had big games. You had number one teams on 3 different division levels getting knocked off on Saturday. So, it was just a smorgasbord of games that happened. But speaking of this Jackson State FAMU game, I hyped it. We all hyped it as the game of the year. And I told Coach Ferrasi at the beginning of the year, I thought a big game needed to have 3 things. One, you needed to have the anxiety. Like, both fan bases needed to feel the anxiety of that game. Check. I think you needed to have big offensive plays. You had that, especially in the first quarter. Check. And then you needed to have drama. You needed to have some kind of dramatic finish at the end of the game. Check. How would you summarize what we saw in Jackson yesterday? I don't know if you got a chance to see it all, but even if you didn't, maybe just from the reports, just your thoughts on the Jackson State FAMU game.
No, everything you just described was exactly what yesterday's game was. I maybe missed about 10 or so minutes once I got home. Had to kind of so I was somewhere else watching the game or whatever. Then I got home or whatever, got my son all situated. The game was on, but wasn't able to really comfortably sit down and watch everything go on with that. But then what brought my attention was the strip sack fumble by Jackson State that led to the touchdown. And really, that play right there is the play that really just changed the course of the game. Because say what you want, if that doesn't happen and FAMU still has an opportunity to really go down, burn a lot of clock up, and then potentially, either extend their lead or, do whatever they have to do or whatever, then Jackson State's back is against the wall with a limited amount of time. So, and also we're thinking about this too. FAMU forced four turnovers, I think it was, against Jackson State yesterday. So, you had all those situations going for what turned out to be a great game. And then, of course, 2 teams that are known for their offenses come up with a huge defensive play that really, really changed the trajectory. And then after that, Jackson State, of course, adds another late score or whatever is kind of, make it not look as close as it was. But, of course, those 2 teams have basically, not only run the East, but really run the SWAC. The last 3 seasons, it looked like it could be going into 4. So, no, I thought it was just an overall great, exciting game. And clearly, there's still a lot that can happen over these last, 5-6 weeks of the season. But that definitely is up there for a game of the year, especially for its significance and impact for the division and the conference.
All right. So, yeah, I'm not even going to get into the trying to predict. Look, all I can do, Mo, is just kind of watch and hope FAMU does what they've done over the last 4 seasons now, and not lose to anybody not named Jackson State. If that can happen, we'll see what happens at the end of the year. But the game, I think, that's coming up, the Magic City Classic, has an interesting dynamic that will play a factor in who comes out of the SWAC East. And in large part because of the rescheduling of the FAMU Alabama A&M game, which was moved to the Black Friday or the Friday after Thanksgiving, whatever you want to call it. That this game this weekend, where both teams come in 3-3 overall, State is actually 2-1, A&M is 1-1 in the East, but A&M's only loss has come to Jackson. State's loss has come to Florida A&M, and so the winner of this game really will, I think, have a say in what happens in mid-November. So that, along with Mo, we'll keep it 100. I mean, Alabama State has won this game the last 2 years under Eddie Robinson. Prior to that, Connell Maynard hadn't lost this game, and now with everything going on, a loss by Alabama A&M. I don't know what the future looks like for Connell Maynard after this game. What's your? I know you'll be covering this game all week, so just kind of set the table for us as we go into Magic City Classic week.
It's funny how you say I'll be covering this game all week. Absolutely, I'll be doing it right here in the city of Huntsville. Unfortunately, I will not be actually covering the game itself, and we'll talk about that probably at the end of our interview in that scenario. But for Alabama A&M, I mean, it's plain and simple. They've got to win out, and they need some help. And for them now, the biggest game is the next game is the Magic City Classic, the game that everybody always asks Coach Maynard about or whatever, and he hates answering that question because he's a game-by-game type of guy. But at the same time, he understands what this week looks like. And, of course, they had a lot of momentum beating Bethune-Cookman following their homecoming game. And, now it's literally a situation where whether you're Alabama State or Alabama A&M, you need this victory of this upcoming week. Of course, Alabama State has won 2 in a row. Eddie Robinson Jr. has not lost to Coach Connell Maynard. As you mentioned, Coach Maynard had never lost a classic to Alabama State until Coach Eddie Robinson stepped onto the scene. But for me, I feel like this. Clearly, it's a big game for both, and now you have significant reasons for why it's a big game. I really, really think the loser of that game is out for the East Division. The winner has a chance. Or whatever. If you're Alabama A&M, you got a chance, but then you still need some help because they did lose head-to-head to Jackson State. For Alabama State, you've got a chance because even though you've lost to Florida A&M, they still do host Jackson State in mid-November. So if Alabama State happens to go on a ride and then all of a sudden you get to mid-November and Alabama State still has 1 loss, Jackson State has no losses, but then let's say Alabama State upsets Jackson State, because right now I would say Jackson would be a favorite in that game. All of a sudden, Alabama State has the tiebreaker in the head-to-head against Jackson. But then that also depends on what the heck's going on with FAMU and stuff, too, because if they still have 1 loss, we have to go to that 3-game tiebreaker thing between teams. And I'm going to let Andrew Roberts just, figure that one out and just send the email to us. So I would say for that situation, it's probably a little bit bigger for Alabama State because of the scenario, but in no way, shape, or form is it not big for Alabama A&M. And of course, throw all the records out because at the end of the day, the Hornets want to beat the Bulldogs and the Bulldogs want to beat the Hornets.
What is something that I've never had the pleasure of going to this game, but it is one of the, I think it ranks as one of the top 3 to 5 classics. I mean, when we talk about HBCU classics at a neutral site, I mean, this is one of them. I mean, this game will draw, I don't know, upwards of close to 50, probably 50+ thousand. And what I love about classes like this is, it's one of them games where at the beginning of the season, they tell you, they tell the coaches, or especially new coaches, coach need to make sure you win, or what they say, you win homecoming and win the classic, and you can stick around for a few years. That's what's something unique about this classic. Something that, I mean, obviously you grew up with the Bayou, but what's something unique that you've kind of learned to really respect and love about the Magic City?
Yeah, I definitely grew up with the Bayou, of course, being a guy who eventually played for Southern University and had all the alums in my family who went to Southern majority, had a few Grambling folks. But I knew about the Magic City Classic primarily because it was one of the few classics I used to actually be able to watch on TV live, because it was one of the few ones that BET actually showed live a lot of time. It was either Magic City or Circle City they would actually show live. So, I knew about Magic City for a number of years. And then my cousin Jamar Fletcher, he played for Alabama State in the early 2000s. So, of course, that was my that was my family connection in that situation. As far as attendance, man, easily 50. I say easily 60,000 just inside the stadium, and then you got like another 40,000 just outside tailgating and in the surrounding areas close to Legion Field. So, and one thing I can say about this, I've covered this game for I've been in Alabama like 11 years now, and even if Alabama State or Alabama A&M is not at their best situation, you're still going to get those fan bases coming in to rep their team. I've told many people this a lot of times. If you have an 0-8 Alabama State team against an 0-7 Alabama A&M squad, you still gonna get 55 to 60,000 inside the stadium, because hey, that people want to still rep for their squad, rep for their school, rep for their area. There are a lot of people who come over who have no affiliation with either team, and they're still in the mix or whatever, because Magic City definitely does top billing. But of course, the tailgating is always huge. The parade is always a big thing. It's shown regionally across the state on stations that are now owned by Great Television, and also I think maybe the Columbus, Georgia market may also show it as well. So that's another big thing. And of course, you have a lot of celebrities that come to this game. This year's ambassador / celebrity will be Amari Hardwick. For those who do not know who Mr. Hardwick is, if you're familiar with the television show Power, he played the title role of James St. Patrick, a.k.a. Ghost, in that one. He's also a former SEC football player. He was a teammate of Kirby Smart at the University of Georgia. So, so that's going to be something a lot of people are going to look forward to as well. And of course, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, all those folks are involved with it. So there are a lot of things that go on with Magic City Classic. And eventually the game rolls around, and this year ESPN said, here's what we're going to do. We're showing this game ESPNU. So guess what? If you can't make the Magic City Classic, you get Jay Walker and Tiffany Green this weekend on the broadcast as well.
Man, Jay and Tiffany getting it in. I didn't go from the game of the year in Jackson to the Magic City. Man, I tell you, the number one team is everywhere. Definitely. All right, so the game is 3:30 on ESPNU. I think when we look at this game, I think it'll be interesting to kind of see Alabama State and what their quarterback situation looks like.
Right. Number 5 now.
They're on their 5th quarterback now?
They're their 5th quarterback now.
Jesus. Man, you talk about a season not going. I mean, and having watched him, remember, I watched him at the beginning of the year, and I'm sitting there watching this game, calling the game with Drew, and I'm thinking it is right before when they come out for that last drive, I'm thinking, oh, State's going to win this game. And then all of a sudden, Body gets hurt, and you're just kind of like, what just happened there? And then everything just goes sideways, and so yeah, I mean, just talk about, man, that's tough going to their 5th quarterback now. Whereas Alabama A&M, after a bad start against Jackson, really the last 6 quarters they have scored. Let me see, 80-something points. Let me see, they scored about 38. In the second half against Jackson, 35 in the second half against Jackson. Then they put up 56 on Bethune. So the last 6 quarters, it seems like whatever they figured out, the offense, I don't know if it's Xavier Langford or whether they just open up the playbook all of a sudden. It seems like Alabama A&M has figured something out. What do you see from them over the last 2
yeah, man. I mean, clearly they definitely have figured something out. Langford, while he has not been the starter majority of the year, he is a savvy veteran here at Alabama A&M in Huntsville. And apparently, whatever he's got going on right now, it is clicking, and it is definitely has work. When I asked Coach Manor about, Langford's ability, his main thing he says that when you got Langford in at quarterback, you're able to call a variety of plays. So I think that has worked out in the favor of the Bulldogs, especially over these last X amount of quarters they've had against Bethune-Cookman and even against Jackson State, as a matter of fact. So right now, I'm guessing they're feeling comfortable with Langford, and he'll be the starter rolling into Magic City Classic. He's actually from the Birmingham area, just south of Birmingham via Pelham, Alabama, same hometown as the Clemson head coach, Dabo Sweeney, as a matter of fact. Yeah. So he's very, very familiar with the Magic City Classic. And, of course, he's lost the last two as the starting quarterback. So he definitely wants to get a dub under his belt at some point in time. And, this could be the opportunity. So, and, of course, they have the second best offense in the SWAC, which is crazy to think that they've played like 4 quarterbacks and they still rank in the top 3 alone in that situation. But also, they're first in they're first in yards per game. So that definitely helps out in that scenario. So for the offense, it's just a matter of, just clicking at the right time. And if they can click well on Saturday, it'll be great. Now, will it be easy? Heck no, because they're going up against the best defense in the SWAC in Alabama State. The top defense from a stat standpoint, top rushing defense, and the second best pass defense in the SWAC. So, it kind of just really just goes back to, all right, this is literally old school, because you got one defensive-minded coach in Eddie Robinson Jr. You've got an offensive-minded coach in Connell Manor. Who's going to come out on top? We'll have to see in 6 days.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right here in the chat, this is a question that I know I had. SWAC Fan 100 says, Langford should have been the guy. I don't understand why he wasn't. I'm right there with you. I don't understand why Langford wasn't the guy at the beginning of the season. Why wasn't Langford the guy at the beginning of the year, Mo?
I'll give you my assessment. I went to enough preseason practices during fall camp, and it just seemed like at the time he either was not clicking on all cylinders with the wide receivers and didn't really have a command of the offense. And because of that, I think that's why he kind of started to get buried upon the depth chart. And, eventually he got his chance. And when he, got his chance to shine once again, he definitely has done that. I'm not taking away anything else from the other quarterbacks who are on the roster or whatever, because it's definitely a next man up mentality that they have on the hill. But, yeah, during preseason camp, he wasn't showing the brilliance of someone who should have been a starting quarterback at this point in time. That's what I saw. Now, what Coach Manor and them have to say probably could be completely different, but at least that's what I saw from the practices that I was able to keep an eye out on. And here's the other thing too: sometimes you need to be knocked down a few stages before you make a miraculous comeback as well. I've seen that happen a slew of times over my career, even not just as a journalist, but also as a collegiate football player. So, you just never know in those situations. But I'm knowing that Alabama A&M fans are just hoping that, hey, if you can just go ahead and just keep it up through the final portion of the season, it could be some good stuff for the Bulldogs as they get ready for that final stretch, which starts with Magic City.
Yeah, definitely. And we're right here at the halfway point of the season. So, I mean, we're right here at the halfway, turning the corner, heading towards the home stretch. This is going to get interesting. I think that's another reason why I really enjoyed this past weekend, Saturday, because it really sets the table for now. Everyone's ears and eyes are perked up, where every week will matter, and we will all be armchair quarterbacks, prognosticators, statisticians, scenario makers. I mean, this is going to be fun. Going down the stretch. So definitely.
Yes, sir.
Now, where will you be this upcoming weekend? For those who aren't familiar, of course, Mo has been doing some broadcasting with the SWAC Digital Network. So you've been all over the SWAC on Saturdays. Where will you be this Saturday?
So I was penciled in to do Magic City Classic, but then I got a wonderful email from the SWAC office basically saying that, hey, ESPN has picked up the game. So because they picked up the game, you have to do some scrambling when it comes to the talent standpoint. So now I will actually be heading to your alma mater, Florida A&M, this upcoming Saturday as they play host to Southern. So I will be on the broadcast with Tolly Carr of HBCU Game Day, and we will serve as play-by-play in color for the Rattlers and Jaguars Saturday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's another thing I saw. It's a 7 o'clock Eastern. Usually FAM plays these games at 6, but I don't know. The 7 o'clock kickoff is kind of interesting, to be honest. But
in my opinion, I think it was one of those things where maybe ESPN looked at like a number of weeks and said, okay, these can be either or situations. And because they're either or situations, they probably wanted to spread certain games out or whatever, to where it's like, okay, even though we're picking up this one, we can pub this next one to where the end of this game, you can switch over to another portion of the app and go check out the next game. Because if you really think about it or whatever, you can almost say it was like that situation with Jackson State and FAM. You had that game at 3:30 Eastern, and then you had Alcorn and Southern at 7 Eastern.
Right.
So and that technically, all you had to do is just hop on the app and switch from one to the other, and boom, there it is. So I kind of think the situation is kind of similar with Magic City Classic and its FAMU versus Southern game coming up. So definitely looking forward to my trip down to Tallahassee this year. It's been a number of years and I've actually been there. So, I might have to shoot you a text throughout the week or something to get a little info here and there. All in all, but like I said, I think that's going to be a fantastic game between the Jaguars and the Rattlers. One of the longest rivalries in HBCU history up until the new millennium for teams that weren't even in the same conference as well. So
exactly, yeah.
Sure, people like that, but I know there are a lot of people that have no clue, and I'm like, yeah, they used to play each other like every single year since like World War II, and they weren't even in the same conference.
Yeah, it is one of those series that I think we have played each other. I think it's one of our top. I got to go back. I'll know on Wednesday, but I think it's one of our top 3 or 5. It's definitely within the top 5 in terms of number of times we played, and I think we're in the 60s. The number of meetings between Southern and FAMU. So I mean, for FAMU, I think there's only maybe 2 other programs that I think we have played more.
I got you.
For FAMU, it was definitely up there.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, until like 2001, I want to say Southern had played FAMU more than what they had played Grambling and Jackson at that time.
Yeah, wow. That's crazy.
It is crazy. Yeah. The only team that they had played more than FAMU was Prairie View, and that's primarily because Southern and Prairie View, were 2 of the earliest members of the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, Doc saying the smart scheduling practices by the SWAC. Yeah, definitely. It makes sense to get right, and we're getting to that point now where you're getting our full either 5, and I think next week is the week when we get all 12 SWAC teams playing each other. I think this week it's 5 teams playing each 5 head versus head, SWAC versus SWAC matchups. Next week, I think we get the full 6. So it'll be.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's this upcoming week. You got 5, and then you got the week of November 2nd. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, all 6 teams facing each other in SWAC play November 2nd.
Yeah. All right, Mo. I appreciate your time tonight. You got a broadcast tonight?
Yes, sir. I'll be on in about 2.5 hours. So as soon as I wrap up with you, I'll head back over to my little area and finish cutting some NFL highlights, and then look at our sports review show afterwards. And had a whole lot of stuff going on this week, man. Football, basketball, media days, hockey, college stuff. So we got a whirlwind of stuff in my sports extra show.
What kind of hockey stuff you got going on? You covering? Hockey coverage in that area.
Yeah, man. So we have the Huntsville Havoc. It's part of the SPHL, and they have led attendance in that league probably like 9 out of the last 10 years. Interesting tidbit about Huntsville, of course. While it is now one of the largest cities in the state of Alabama, thanks to all the growth or whatever, there's a lot of transplants here, especially not a lot of northern transplants. So what do people in the north like? hockey.
Oh, yeah.
So the majority of the fans are people who aren't even from here or whatever. And it's been very, very supportive. Huntsville having in their maybe 15-year history, 16-year history. They've won 3 championships. They were 1 game away from winning their 4th championship. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on with the hometown hockey team. And they do a lot of good things from a promotional standpoint. They lead attendance, as I mentioned. And, yeah, they started their games Friday against Birmingham, and then they went to Pensacola on Saturday. But they have their home opener this upcoming week. But we had media day with them last week. So, of course, going to kind of recap that, kind of give them a breakdown of hey, here's how they did it and how everything goes on. Don't get me wrong, I never covered hockey a day in my life before I'd even got here. But it's been some fun times. Covering the Havoc here as well. So yeah, man, that's what I got going on the ice as well.
Nice. All right. Mo, let people know where they can find you, where they can hit you up, and then again, Saturday you and Tolly will be covering the FAMU game, FAMU and Southern game. So go ahead and let people know where they can find you out on X and all that good
Absolutely.
stuff.
So on X, formerly known as Twitter, you can follow me at Mo Carter, Fox 54. Same situation on Facebook. This upcoming Saturday, as I mentioned, Tolly Carr and I will be on the broadcast for the Florida A&M versus Southern University game. And that game kicks off. Look at me saying tips off. I got basketball games coming up
Basketball
too.
on your mind.
Exactly.
On your mind.
Yeah, but yeah, that game kicks off 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus, so you can check that out via the ESPN app. Like I said, it'll be me and Tolly Carr of HBCU Game Day on that broadcast between the Jaguars and the Rattlers. We'll see who can get the victory on Saturday night, and you'll be able to check me out there. Then next week, I'll hit the Mobile for the Port City Classic between Alcorn and Alabama State. That game will also be on ESPN Plus. Don't worry, I have no ability of getting bumped by Tiffany and Jay for that one. So I know for sure I'm going to Mobile next week in that scenario. So, but yeah, so that's where you'll see my face at least from a digital standpoint. And as I mentioned, at Mo Carter Fox 54 on both Twitter and Facebook is where you can definitely catch me. And if you want to see into my local work, go to fox54.com, hit the sports tab. You can see all the things we've been doing right here in Huntsville and the surrounding area.
Well said. All right, Mo. Again, thanks for your time. Congratulations to Southern on the homecoming win, and we look forward to hosting the Jaguars in Bragg, where we don't lose in Bragg. So
I got you. I'll probably use that as part of my intro.
Yeah, hey, look, that's what they say. I think the streak is up to 20-something. It's we haven't lost since the end of the 2018 season. We lost to South Carolina State, was the last team to beat us. I think that was Coach Simmons' first year at FAMU. So just but all right, man. Well, hey, be well. And I hope I'm still undecided on if I'm going to be at Bragg. It's homecoming week. So as a teacher at my school, I kind of forgot.
Some responsibilities.
Yeah. I think I volunteered to be a chaperone at something on Saturday, so I'm kind of but anyway, if I can get out of it, I may be up there. We'll see.
Nah, man, I got you. Look, hey, both of my parents were teachers and educators, along with a few other aunts and uncles, so I knew exactly where you're coming from on that one.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, hey, be well, Mo. Thanks again for your time tonight. Take care.
No problem, my friend. Have a good one.
All right. Appreciate Mo Carter for coming in and giving us a preview of that Magic City Classic. I gotta put that. Look, it's crazy being and working in this space. I gotta put some of these classics on my list. I just gotta get out of the state of Florida here between that and the Bayou. And I think those are the two classics. There's a chance we may make it to the Bayou this year, so I may be able to cross the Bayou off my list of places that I want to be at or classics that I want to attend. Of course, I grew up on the Circle City Classic, so the Circle City was everything to me. And then kind of going to FAMU, getting a chance to go to some other classics in the South, the Atlanta Football Classic and the Celebration Bowl and all the other things that come with being down in the South. But I just haven't made it to the Magic City, and I haven't made it to the Bayou. And I think those are the two that I really want to make a chance to get to. All right, well, let me do this. Let me go ahead and introduce here as I come up to the end of the show. Make sure I get into the BCSN top 5. The new BCSN top 5 for this week, games played through October 20th. Again, these are computer-based rankings. I believe this is week number 4. I've lost count, to be honest. But I know every week we started after 4 weeks of the regular season, and then that's when the poll started. So here we are coming up after the games played yesterday, the BCSN top 5 computer rankings for mid-major, what we call the non-D1 level. That's teams in the Division II as well as the NAIA. And then we have schools in the FCS that we are simply called the Division I school. So let's get into the top 5. Just outside of the top 5, we have the teams that are in the hunt. This is essentially would be your teams in a traditional poll of 6 through 10. We've got Miles College. Miles sitting 5-2, 5-0 in the SIAC, followed by West Virginia State. West Virginia State dropped out of the top 5. I think they were 3 last week. 5-2 overall, 4-1. In the Mountain East, they lost a close game last week in the Mountain West, a 2-point loss. So their first conference loss. So keep an eye on West Virginia State as they continue. They may challenge for the conference. It'll be interesting to see what will happen for them and if they even have a shot at potentially getting into the playoffs. Clark Atlanta of the SIAC, 4-2-1, 3-2, following the loss to Miles. Albany State quietly keeps winning, 4-3, 4-1 in conference play of the SIAC. Then how about Langston? Langston has won 4 games in a row. They are 4-2, 3-1 overall of the Sooner Athletic Conference. Coming in at number 5, Virginia State of the CIAA. Virginia State defeated Elizabeth City State over the weekend, 36-7. They travel to Bluefield State next week. Kind of in talking with Chris Ferguson earlier, you heard us talk about Virginia State. All roads seem to lead to Virginia State continuing to win over the next couple of weeks, and then it sets up for that showdown against their in-state rival Virginia Union, where somebody will have a shot at you used to be able to say the winner of that game will represent the North. Now that game just may mean somebody has a shot at getting to the CIAA championship game, and somebody will not. Somebody's season could be over. Number 4, might surprise you, but Florida Memorial Lions, 3-2-1. Of course, their one tie came against Clark, a game that was called at halftime due to weather. They are number 4, coming in representing the Sun Conference. They defeated Weber International 50-27. Next week they play an Ave Maria team that they should win. So pay attention to the Lions. They have a explosive offense, and it'll be interesting to see, can they win the Sun Conference and get into the NAIA playoffs. No graphic there for Winston-Salem State Rams, even though they are 6-2, 4-1. They defeated Livingstone 31-7. Next week, the big matchup against Johnson C. Smith. Virginia Union Panthers coming at number 2, 5-2 overall, 4-0. Defeated Lincoln, PA, 63-12. Big win. Then they traveled to Bowie State on Saturday. And the number 1 team again, Johnson C. Smith, the Golden Bulls, unbeaten, 7-0, 4-0 in conference play. Defeated Shaw 21-14 at home for homecoming. Now they travel to Winston-Salem State to take on the Rams in a big-time matchup for both of those programs, former South Division rivals. And there's your top 5 again: Johnson C. Smith, Virginia Union, Winston-Salem State, Florida Memorial, and Virginia State. So there's the top 5 of the non-Division 1. All right. Yes, indeed, Karen, and exactly. Langston, Florida Memorial, and Johnson C. Smith all won yesterday. Exactly. And I think it was a homecoming win for Langston, Coach. I know Coach Ferrasi there is a big fan of. Well, actually, he's an alum of Langston, former player. So shout out to Langston on the win. All right. Moving over to the FCS side of things. And we get into the top 5 of the Division I level for the FCS teams. A full host of teams from the SWAC in the hunt, essentially making up teams that would be 6 through 10 in your traditional poll. Southern University just sitting outside of the top 5. Hampton University following their big win, coming in right behind them. Alcorn State, 4-4, 3-1, their first conference loss to Southern on Saturday. Then we've got the Alabama schools, Alabama State and A&M. Both schools were on a bye last week, and of course sets up for a big showdown in Magic City Classic this Saturday. Coming in at number 5 on the BCSN Division I computer rankings, the Rattlers, Florida A&M, coming in at number 5, 3-3 overall, 1-1 in conference play following the loss to Jackson State. They host Southern at home, where the Rattlers have not lost. I don't know what the number is, to be honest. I know I got some Rattlers in the chat. Somebody tell me what the home winning streak is, number-wise. It's in the 20s. I know that. But FAMU has not lost since the end of the 2018 season. So that's the streak that Southern is coming into play. Number 4, as the Rattlers move down a spot from 4 to 5, South Carolina State moves up a spot from 5 to 4. 4-2 overall. They defeated Fort Valley State 30-3. They take on Delaware State in the first conference game of the season for South Carolina State. Number 3. Jackson State comes in at number 3. 5-2, 3-0. Of course, defeated Florida A&M 35-21. And this Saturday, they will travel to Daytona Beach and take on Bethune-Cookman. So how can Jackson State have fallen from 2 to 3? Well, that's because these guys, the Tennessee State Tigers, actually moved ahead of them in terms of total points. Tennessee State 6-2, 3-1, 672 points after defeating Howard 27-14. The Tigers of Tennessee State are on a bye. Number 1, still holding at number 1. No surprises here. North Carolina Central, 5-2 record, 1-0 in the MEAC, and last week was a bye week for them, Saturday. Now they begin conference play against Morgan State. And so when we look at the top 5, there's your totals there. North Carolina Central, Tennessee State, Jackson State, South Carolina State, and Florida A&M. And I would say this, for anybody who wonders, you say, well, how can Jackson State have fallen? These are computer-based rankings. Most people, and even myself as a voter of a couple different polls, I have Jackson State as number 2 in the poll, my poll that I vote in, or the polls that I vote in, while Tennessee State is sitting at 3. But the computers, the computer metrics actually sees one more win from Tennessee State versus Jackson State. And, you know, I'm not a computer, but I got to imagine that might be the difference. Also, I think you got to take into consideration Tennessee State has played either an FCS or higher schedule. Of the 8 games they played, they have not played a Division II opponent, which you all know Jackson State has played Lane. And so of the 5 wins, one of those is against a Division II opponent. So the computers like when you play teams at your level or above, don't necessarily give you credit for beating up on a team below. It is what it is. So that is your explanation in case you need it. And that's the difference between the computers versus the people. But I always say this, and Drew will say it as well, it all evens itself out as the season goes along and as we get into the rankings. Them boys said that's why FBS got rid of purely computer ranking. Yeah, it may be. It may be why they got rid of it, you know. But you know, I think there's some value in it because I think even us as voters, we sometimes have our biases. And so I think when the computers are looking at things, I love that. Spence, a JSU guy, thinks that the top 5 looks fine. That's good to know. I guess good to know. Appreciate Doc for coming in. Boy, I didn't say all that. That's you saying that. But again, FAMU having played an FBS schedule or better does make a difference. I will say that. And also strength of schedule, when you think about who FAMU has beaten, right? FAMU has beaten an Alabama State team that's ranked there in the top 10, and they beat a South Carolina State team that's ranked in the top 5. So I think that is clearly a step up in the feather in the ball cap there for FAMU. All right, I want to end the show by just kind of taking a peek ahead at some of the big matchups for this upcoming weekend. You know, last weekend I dubbed it the college football weekend, game of the weekend, game of the year, and it lived up to that. It lived up to the hype. I mean, among the various conferences, we had big matchups all over the place. This week, obviously, the headlines for this upcoming week in the SWAC, you have the Magic City Classic, Alabama A&M, Alabama State. You have Southern at FAMU. Both games are appearing on the ESPN platforms. One starts at 3:30, the Magic City Classic, that's 3:30 Eastern. And then you move into the Southern FAMU game, which is a 7 o'clock kickoff on the East. Let's see, Southern versus FAMU, who wins? Tune in Wednesday night. Braden, Wednesday night on the ONG Strike Zone, where we talk about all things FAMU athletics and culture. I will share my thoughts on that game. I saw somebody get into me about my prediction. I did predict FAMU 24-14. You know, defensively, I wasn't that far off, was I? I mean, when I think about what FAMU's defense gave up, FAMU's defense, I mean, was 3 minutes away. 3.5 minutes away. But it is, you know, nobody cares about the predictions after the fact, right? Yeah, the football season is moving fast. We're coming up on the home stretch here. Second half of the season. I don't know, Jeff, if I would call A&T at Campbell a game of the year quality game, but okay. You know, hopefully the Aggies can come through with a win. You know, hopefully they can come through with a win. Over in the MEAC, it's the start of the MEAC schedule. So you got Howard at Norfolk State at 2 o'clock Eastern, Morgan State at Central, 3:30, and then Dell State at South Carolina State at 3:30. The MEAC gets underway. I think the headline game is Morgan at Central. That game, Central had to come from behind to beat Morgan last year, ended up winning 16-10 last year. So I think that's your spotlight game. On the Division II level, I didn't. SIAC has a full slate of games, but none of the games are really the sexy matchups that will sort of determine who will win. Now, granted, Miles is unbeaten, sitting atop the division. Let me see. Let me go to my standings here in the SIAC, where Miles is sitting at 5-0 in conference play. Sitting, though, right behind Miles, pay attention, you got Fort Valley State, Albany State, and Tuskegee, all sitting there at 4-1. So it feels like this is like put this cycle on repeat. The SIAC does this every year. Somehow always ends up where coming into the last 2 to 3 weeks of the season, we end up with 4 teams that are going to battle it out. And so Fort Valley State and Albany State will play each other, the Fountain City Classic. Miles and Tuskegee will play each other. So somehow, some way, those teams will match up, and 2 of those 4 teams will get knocked out. Who's on the outside peeking through the window? Clark. Clark has 2 losses. Savannah State has 2 losses as well, and so does Benedict. So, they would need a lot of help, but it shouldn't come this week. This week should be a chalk weekend in the SIC with some of the matchups that we have this week. But, anything is possible. You got Tuskegee traveling to Central State, Edward Waters off a bye traveling to Albany State, Miles traveling to Benedict. That could be a little dicey. I don't know. Fort Valley State travels to Morehouse. With all respect to Drew, I don't know if that's going to be even a close ball game. Just to keep it 100. But the division or the conference that I am keeping my eyes on is the CIAA. Game of the year, part 3 in the CIAA. Johnson C. Smith traveling to Winston-Salem State. I think I saw that Johnson C. hasn't won at Winston-Salem since, I don't know if the number of 1970 something was correct, but I think it's been a long time since Johnson C. has won at Winston-Salem State. So in a year in which the Golden Bulls have done a lot of things, a lot of first time in a long times, add this to the list. Yeah, okay. Karen said 1976. Wow. Jesus. What? I'm going to do the math. I was born. So, yeah, okay. That's a long time. Yeah, it's almost been my lifetime. That's how long it's been. So, it's been a minute since Johnson C. has won at Winston-Salem State. So that'll be interesting. Make sure to tune in to D2 football, HBCU D2 Football Matters, where Stephen Gaither and Chris Ferguson will break this game down. I know they will. Wednesday night, 7 Eastern on HBCU Game Day. And I know our own Dr. Cavill inside the HBCU Sports Lab, as we get ready, as he releases his mid-major poll on Tuesday, that'll be another place. So all kinds of opportunities to hear about this matchup and just the breakdown of this CIAA matchup there. Virginia Union at Bowie plays 1 o'clock on Saturday, and Shaw at Fayetteville State plays at 2:30. So those are the 3 spotlight games in the CIAA. Well, that's going to do it for this show. I want to thanks again to Coach Ferrasi Norman for coming in earlier in the first segment. Chris Ferguson at the bottom of hour 1. Brad Gillens and Mo Carter joining me in hour 2. I thank everybody who popped in the chats. If you haven't already, I'd appreciate you hitting the thumbs up and the like button, however, and wherever you're watching the show. Do me a solid as well. Check out the BCSN Pod Zone. If you enjoy podcasts, or maybe you just enjoy supporting our platform, you do me a solid if you go to BCSN Pod Zone, everywhere you download and listen to podcasts, at Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Apple and Google Podcasts. I'd appreciate it. It goes a long way. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, give a ratings review, whatever you can from that particular platform. It all helps the algorithm numbers, and it goes to help us. It keeps the thing going. So that's going to do it for tonight. I want to thank everybody again for your contribution. Sorry I didn't get more of the wonderful chats up on the screen, but it looked like it was a pretty active group. I didn't have to block anybody, so that's a positive. We'll see what happens later in the week. But Everybody, be well this week. Have a great week. Enjoy the fall weather. Enjoy the change in the weather. It seems to be going on around the country. And let's get ready to do it all again next Saturday as we move into week 9. Can you imagine we're already heading down the home stretch of our HBCU football season? Basketball season is around the corner. The NBA starts Tuesday night, just in case you didn't know. The NBA starts Tuesday, probably Wednesday in a lot of places. Baseball, I think tonight you got the Dodgers and Mets. Game 1 of the World Series between the Yankees and somebody starts on Friday. This is the sports cornucopia where every major sports league will be playing like over the next week and a half. I think there's even a WNBA final. I don't know when it is. I think it's happening tonight. I don't even know if it happened already. I don't know. But it's a cornucopia of sports for the sports fan. Thanks for watching. I'm Bryan Fulford. AD Drew is on the road traveling to Atlanta. He says he'll be back soon. So we'll count down the days until Drew returns. Thanks for watching the BCSN Sports Wrap right here on the Black College Sports Network. Peace out, everybody.